Hello, everyone. Welcome to Startup Jungle. I'm your host, Lo Silva. And today with me, I have Chris Conrey. He is the author of the Post Modern Sales Manifesto. So, Chris, what's up, man? How are you?
Doing great, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being on. I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. So, I know you wrote this book, the Manifesto for Postmodern Sales, but what exactly does that mean? So, take me a little bit through modern sales and what we are in essentially right now, which would be postmodern sales, right?
Sure. I've been in sales basically my whole life. If you ask my mom, I've been selling since I was 3. But I've been in the sales world. My first, real world job outside of college was selling cars. The very smile and slick back hair, the stereotypes that we all know and love, they're real and alive in the car business, unfortunately. But then I've done some other sales jobs as well, and I left the selling world for a while and went to work for a couple of tech companies. And I started off as the sales guy, but I did a lot of project management stuff, and I became um, inundated with a lot of other experiences. I got to experience a lot of things, and one of the places that really resonated with me was when I started working with Agile. And anyone that's been in software is probably at least tangentially familiar with Agile, but there's the Agile Manifesto, which is what this manifesto was really based on. And that was done about 20 years ago, where basically some guys came together and said, okay, these things are all important, but this is the way we want to do business, this is the way we want to do software. And I decided this is how I want to do sales, the same way. So, the old school, so the modern sales model is everything's about price, everything's about, coupons and best deals. I think Groupon is a terribly great example of this. I hate to name names, but car business, it's all about how do I get you from hello to signing on the dotted line and give me money as fast as possible. Very transactional based and very I'm the seller, you're the buyer, and I have something you want, so you will give me money.
Yeah,
And I
very
think
closer style.
exactly, yeah. Glengarry Glen Ross is the classic example that
Yeah,
makes a lot of
Kirby
sense.
vacuum guy.
Yeah, Kirby Vacuums. Any of the door-to-door guys, I
Yeah,
mean, any of the places where you go to buy,
Sandler.
when you want to go buy, furniture or buy appliances, no one likes doing that stuff because it's such a pressure thing.
You can't.
Um,
Yeah, you can't even browse. You don't even have the time to just kind of like take your own time and look at things without someone being like, so trying to lead you and trying to take you directly to a sale. Yeah, you're
so
right.
most car dealerships, you get less than 2 minutes by yourself before you're approached by a salesperson. That's actually a standard. A lot of dealerships, you're not allowed to browse by yourself at all. You have to have a salesperson with you, and that's a model that no one likes.
Yeah.
And so that's where I wanted to change things. The world has changed. The internet has empowered buyers and empowered sellers to be different. And this isn't just about social media. This isn't about anything else, but the world as a whole has changed, and the relationship model has changed. So, this is not anything that I think is completely out of touch for some of the better salespeople out there. But it's hey, these are the things we're going to value and we're going to focus on as opposed to the old way of doing business. So it's really short. It's relationships and interactions over transactions. Build relationships first, and the selling gets easy. This works just not only for selling your own stuff, but for referrals later, for connecting people later. My favorite thing in the world to do is to connect two people that I have no financial involvement whatsoever. Somebody calls you up and goes, hey, do you guys do iOS development? Nope, but I have a great guy. Let me introduce you to Glenn. That's the best thing in the world for me.
Yeah.
The next line is establishing value over lowering price and rate. I think if you ever have to discount or lower your price, you've screwed up along the way ahead of time. You have to build the value in what you're doing first. Um, Third line
Kind
is
of like how
customer collaboration. Go ahead.
Kind of like how Apple never changes prices. Even as a distributor, long time ago, I used to be an electronics distributor, and Apple, you could get a $4 off if you were a distributor. So
Sure.
they will not budge on that.
Because they build the value. Everyone has an iPhone because they see the value in it. Either the social value or the actual physical value or the technology value, but there's a value in it to then it's worth whatever that price is.
So
Um,
how can we do a better job at establishing that value?
so, and this is something that comes up a lot when I talk to people is the other part of this that really ties in is that postmodern sales is as much marketing as it is sales.
Hmm.
And marketing in the new world is as much sales as it is marketing. Those two roles have kind of Voltron together, and they
Hmm.
have to. And so you have to build that value up front. And a lot of the way to do that is by asking questions, especially in the sales process. I find that if you are doing more telling than you're doing asking, you've probably not built value. So, and the example is if I ask questions, if I want to sell you something, I'll ask questions about what your problems are, what you're trying to do, why you even took this phone call. The best thing I ever do on a sales call is, hey, great, I appreciate you taking the time. I just want to know what hooked you. Why'd you agree to take this call? Why'd you agree to have this meeting with me? And let them explain. They'll tell you up front what the value they're looking for is. They're either looking for something to make their life easier, or to save them money, or to solve a problem that they have, or hey, this just looked shiny. I wanted to find out more about it. You'll know up front some of the values that are important for them. And the only way you can do that is by asking questions. And marketing has been really good at this over the past several years of saying, hey, this is why you want this. They talk about the why. Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why.
Hmm.
Great example. Figure out the why problem that you're trying to solve, and that's what's going to happen. People buy solutions, they buy benefits, they don't buy features.
They buy
Uh,
speed and automation.
right. They buy the benefit. This is saving me time, this is saving money, this is solving a problem I have. It's not this has rounded corners and look how fast this iOS connection is. It's Dropbox is a great example of this. Their UI is pretty good, but what that solves is I have access to my documents everywhere I go on my iPad, my iPhone, my computer, on another friend's computer if I can sign in. That solves a problem of I don't have to lug around a external hard drive with all my gear on it. I have it with me. It's in the cloud, which buzzword, but whatever. That's the problem they solve. Gmail solved this. Hey, we have infinite mail storage. Go. That was the benefit. They were free, but so was Hotmail, so was Yahoo Mail. But Gmail took off because hey, we have all this storage you can have. That was the benefit. People buy benefits. People buy, that's the value that you need to build, is talk about the benefits you're giving them, not we have all these extra features that you probably won't ever use anyway. The example I always use with this is Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Word even. Microsoft Word, most people use less than 10% of the features of Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
They're all there. And if you ever look at the marketing materials for Office back in the day, that's all they talked about is you can do this, and you can do this, and you can do this, you can do this. Most people don't do that. They want to type up a paper for class.
But it's funny you say that though, because so many people still to this day lead with features. It, you don't see, I mean, you do see people and companies, start with the benefits, but most people are always feature, 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 just trying to hit you with as almost overwhelming, so you feel that you've got a deal. That's kind of their way of, kind of like a reverse way almost of establishing value. They're just oversaturating you with what they feel the features are, so you feel overwhelmed and say, wow, I mean, this is so feature rich, I should get it, rather than, and you don't even have to have a lot of other things, as long as you establish like, hey, we do one or two things, but we do it pretty well, and
Right.
that's going to save you X amount of time, X amount of dollars, and we don't have to do 45 different things. You're not here for that. You're here for two. We do it. We do it pretty well. That's our value. We're not lowering our prices.
I think a lot of people lead with features because they're scared or they haven't identified the benefits yet. If you
Hmm.
don't ask the questions up front, you don't do the research, it's really hard to know what the benefit is. So features are much easier. It's the path of least resistance. But I think you hit the nail on the head as, I can either be, McDonald's and I have chicken and I have burgers and I have fish and I have this and everything else. And okay, they're average, whatever. They're a tolerable meal. Or I can be In-N-Out Burger and all I do is hamburgers and milkshakes and they're friggin' awesome, right? Those are I focused like a laser. One of the very first blog posts I ever wrote when I started getting back into blogging about business is you can have two AA batteries. They can either power a flashlight and illuminate a lot of stuff kind of dimly, or you can have them power a laser and illuminate a very, very small thing, but very intensely. There's a difference, and both have their uses. When you're talking about benefits, you're in the laser. You're hitting, this is why this helps you. The flashlight stuff, the features, those are great. They might hook you to get to the further conversation, but you've got to get to that laser point at some point.
So let's talk about the third one, which is customer
Customer
collaboration
collaboration over
over
haggling and
haggling.
negotiation.
Yep.
So this was the one that I probably have the most explanation to do because the other ones are pretty well defined. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, established value. I mean, the last one is long-term partnerships over originally defined roles. The last two are a little bit more vague. The customer collaboration one and haggling negotiation. I specifically wrote this. Now, to be fair, I did write this whole thing at 2 in the morning. Um, a fit of inspiration. This one is more focused on, I had just received a handful of RFPs that I was supposed to try to respond to, and as anyone who's ever talked to me will know, if you've ever read anything I've written, RFPs are the devil. No one wins an RFP. No one should ever win an RFP. No one ever wants to win an RFP, because an RFP is literally designed to find the most average possible way to solve a problem. It's never going to find an exceptional solution. And the reason that is it's very one-sided. It's bam, here's my 600-page document. This is how I'm going to solve your problem. I don't even know if that's the problem you have. You don't even know if that's the problem you have. I have done so many projects with clients over the past few years where they think that, going in, they assume their project is going to fit in this nice little circular box. And by the time we get in there and they start getting customers into it and they start evolving because things change, especially as users get in there, everyone's got a plan to get punched in the face, the old Mike Tyson quote.
Yeah.
It's the same with everything you do with software or any app, you're going to put it out there and people are going to start using it in totally different ways. Mm-hmm. And you've never even thought of them. And they're going to find all kinds of problems you never even considered because you weren't going to use it that way. And that's why RFPs are broken. RFPs say, I know everything that's going to happen for the next X number of months, and I want to build this way. And that's where the collaboration piece comes in. And this is, really dependent on not just software, but this works on everything else too. When I'm going to go, buy a house, I might think I want, a 4-bedroom house with this and that and that. But as I talk to the realtor, talk to the people building the house, they might say, well, what about this? You haven't even thought of this. And so it's a much more collaborative approach of, you're an expert in something.
Yeah.
Use that expertise to give value back to the people that you're selling to instead of just taking everything they want. Anyone can be an order taker. Anyone can be the dude at the Burger King drive-thru window and say, okay, you want a Big Mac and fries and a shake. Great. The guys that win are the guys that say, hey, you got all these other things. Most people also get an apple pie. Do you want one of those too? And that extra level of consultation, that extra level of collaboration goes a long way.
Yeah, so something else that I guess my own spin on it, from what I gathered as well on it is, customer collaboration over haggling and negotiation rather than the hassler car salesman selling from different points of support. For example, selling from a webinar where you're doing education-based marketing, or selling from literally the customer support desk and educating the person on how to use your app or how to use your software, whatever business you may have, and kind of that turning into, oh, well, did you need help with that? Yeah, I do. Well, we have this other section, and selling through these other channels as well, rather than always kind of hitting the more aggressive direct response route.
Absolutely, and that's something that I talk about a lot with people when I'm talking about sales. Is your support team? They're your sales team.
Salesman, yeah.
Your front desk, the person that greets people when they walk in the office, the front desk receptionist, she's on your sales team. The people that answer your phones, they're on your sales team. Everybody that ever touches the customer is there to solve a problem, and they're part of your sales team. And it's something that people forget about. Doctor's office. I had a doctor that had great doctor, but his front office staff, terrible. I'd go in, and they'd be gabbering about the weekend or gossiping, whatever else, and I'd stand there waiting to sign in, get my copay, and do all that stuff. And it took forever, and I was like, oh. I ended up switching doctors, not because of anything the doctor did, but because the rest of the staff was such a nightmare to deal with. And I think people forget that a lot of the time. And this works both ways too, is when you're trying to sell into people, remember those people on the front line. That front office staff, that front office person, that support person you talk to, they're just as valuable in the selling process as in the buying process.
Yeah, I agree. How do you, and have you ever done this before, but how do you kind of get, let's say, the front people and the back people coming more from on the customer support side to understand that they are salespeople now? Because I totally agree with you. We've seen it on people we've worked with and consulted with, that they've brought in sales teams, and it's been horrible. The people who are selling well are the customer support people, and they never even put two and two together until, once they started really looking at the numbers, they're like, these support people are crushing the actual sales guys, because the sales guys are going in for the kill. These people are coming in, they're helping, they're answering questions, and then I don't even think they mean to, and they're saying, hey, so what else do you need? How can we upgrade you to this? And taking people to whatever part of the sales funnel you're in, and from that standpoint.
So I think you have to lie a little bit, and that's a little bit of a joke, but sales is a dirty word for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I think you have to talk to your support team and your marketing team and anyone else and talk about, remember, everything you do is focused on how do you help the customer. And if you get a culture of that in place, and you get a culture in place where the customer's needs come first and the customer's desires are important, the sales will happen on its own. I know it seems a little counterintuitive, but you can't tell people that you're in sales, because as a general whole, people see salespeople as the slick back car salesman, the dirty, slimy, pushy guy, and they don't want to be that. It's very difficult for a lot of people to self-identify as a salesperson, even if that's what they're really doing. They'd much rather say, I'm in customer support, I'm in, client relations. Those things are much easier for them to justify in their heads. So you just have to build a culture of everything we do is focused on making the customer happy.
Happiness consultants, like
Yeah.
the guys in Zappos.
Well, that's a great example. Zappos does a wonderful job of this. Their culture is focused on how do we make our customers happy.
They're called
And
happiness consultants.
yeah, that's a great book I recommend for anybody. If you haven't read Tony Hsieh's book, Delivering Happiness, I highly recommend it. He talks about building that culture. The other company that does a really good job of this is, oh, and I brain locked all of a sudden. Zappos does a great job of this. Yeah, never mind. I lost it. It's one of those mornings.
Understood. So let's dive into the fourth one, which is long-term partnerships over rigidly defined roles.
So this kind of stemmed from the last one as well. And I mentioned earlier that I love connecting people.
Hmm.
I have a number of clients who I did a very small project for. Very small, 2-3 week project. And I still talk to them 2 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later. Because they know what I do, and I know what they do, and I know what world they run in. And so things will come up, and they go, "Hey, I know you don't normally do this sort of thing, but is this something you might be interested in?" And I've had people offer, guest blogging opportunities, speaking engagements. They've referred clients to me. They've referred job opportunities to me that I wasn't even looking for. And this goes back. It kind of makes it a nice full circle back to relationships and interactions as well. Is I'd much rather find someone that I can do business with for the next 10 to 15 years than someone I'm going to do business with once and throw away. And so you want to build those relationships so that you can build a partnership. And so I wanted to open and close with the relationship thing when I wrote this, because I really focused on how important that is as a whole. Sales is a relationship process anymore, and it always has been, but now the focus is really shifted that way. People want to be treated right and treated by people that they want to hang out with.
People
You
want to
know?
build a relationship for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not so much, I mean, you can do the black and white thing, but people are actively looking to do business with people that they can have a long-term relationship, that they can have trust and build something bigger. A lot of people nowadays are actually trying to build something bigger than themselves, bigger than just a business. So yeah.
And so, I mean, the example I always use here is, I sold cars for 5 years,
Hmm.
which is a fairly long time in that kind of business. It's a healthy world. It's a lot of turnover. It's not for everybody. It's a very high pressure world. And I was a good salesperson, not bragging, but I consistently had, salesman of the month, or I was top in my department. It wasn't because I was better at doing the numbers or better at test driving people or anything else, but I had built a number of relationships that worked out really well. I made a friend at a company. I sold him a truck for his son. This company services forklifts and sells forklifts. I ended up selling that company, between the company and referrals from that company, 37 cars over the span of 3 years. 37 vehicles, because they bought 15 trucks for the company over the span of those time for their service people, for their salespeople. I sold his wife, who's a realtor, a car. I sold his boss's wife a car. I sold his boss's neighbor a sports car. I sold all sorts, because I had treated him so well on the first pass that anytime he thought thought about anything with a car, even if it wasn't the dealership I sold from or the make I sold from, he'd call me up and go, hey, I sold Nissans. He goes, hey, my friend wants this Ford Mustang. I know you guys don't do Mustangs. Do you know someone that does? I became entrenched in his brain as the guy to talk to about car stuff. And that's where that relationship came from. And that partnership, though, came out later when I stopped selling cars. He still has my cell phone number. To this day, if I see the guy on the street, we'll shake hands and talk. Or if I'm in town, we'll have a beer. And he emailed me and goes, hey, do you know anyone that does this completely? He's looking for something for a website. At the time, I had just left the business. I was getting back into tech. And I go, yes, my company doesn't do this, but let me introduce you to these three other guys. They both run, two of them run firms that do exactly what you're looking for. They build brands, they build the websites, they do all the marketing material. You should talk to these guys, and I'll introduce you. So, he knows that I know people. My tagline has always been, I'm a person who knows people. And, I like connecting. So he knew that I had a hookup somewhere that might be able to hook him up. So it wasn't just that customer-seller relationship. It was hey, this is someone that can actually help me out long term.
Yeah, I think overall with selling and business development, everything else now, like you said, with postmodern sales, a huge part of it comes from being authentic yourself. Because I think that the inauthenticity of the more aggressive sales, and we can get into that as well. And is it dying? Is it just kind of moving away completely? What your thoughts are on that? But I definitely think that overall authenticity in everything you're doing as a business now is what's going to lead to more sales.
We lead a far more public life than we ever have in the past due to things like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. Social media has put our normal interactions out there in the world.
Yeah.
So being fake is harder than ever.
Yeah.
And I think it's easier to spot people that are being fake. And even if you're not actively looking for someone to do business with, you will subconsciously avoid people that you can peg as being fake. And so I think that authenticity is a huge thing in sales. You're the only one that can be you. And I talk to a lot of people that are, one or two man teams, one or two man companies, and they always say, okay, I want to hire a first salesperson. I go, no, you're not big enough to hire a salesperson right now. You need to be you because no one's going to sell you like you. I have a really good friend. He's actually flying into town today. He said, hey, come get coffee. I want to walk and talk with you. And at my old office. And we walked down the street to the coffee shop and started talking about it. And I told him, I said, look, Greg, the best thing you can do is you block out 2 hours on Tuesday, 2 hours on Thursday, and those are your 4 sales hours. Right now it's you and one other guy. You don't need a salesperson. You need to sell you because people aren't buying the company, they're buying Greg. And no one's going to sell you like you. Your brother, your best friend, your wife, no one's going to sell you as good as you are. And so that's really important.
So let me ask you what your take is on this, on kind of bigger companies, a little bit more established, all the way to startups, I guess we would say. Brands over people, meaning, Zappos is huge, but when you think Zappos, you immediately think the person, Tony, and he's done a great job at also like creating little people in those things. When you think Virgin, you think one person.
Richard Branson.
Yeah, when you think Coca-Cola, you just think boom, big. I don't know. You know what I mean? Do companies need to be thinking that way now, like to having like one authentic head, for example? Do you think that would help them or hurt, or what's your thought on that?
I think it can and it can't. You brought up two really good counterexamples of, you think Virgin and everyone sees Richard Branson right away. He's established himself as that guy. But then you bring up Coke. There's no names you can easily tie to Coca-Cola. There's no names you can easily tie to Pepsi. But Apple had Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak.
Yeah.
It can and can't hurt you. A lot of it depends. Obviously, the earlier you are, the smaller you are, the more important it is that you have a face, because you only have a small handful of clients. As that grows, as you become a Coca-Cola or a Walmart, Walmart even to an extent had Sam Walton, but not really. Most people don't think of Sam Walton when they go to Walmart. They think, oh, it's just cheap prices and I can afford stuff here.
Yeah.
But early on, it was Sam Walton, and for Sam Walton, his customers were really the sellers, the people that he was getting product from, and
Hmm.
he had a relationship there. So somewhere along the line, you're going to have those relationships, and as you grow, you're going to have to splinter that out, and so you're going to have, you know, this person who's in charge of this group, this person in charge of this group, and that's going to, tree out along the way. That's only natural.
Yeah.
Building that culture early on when it's just you, one to one with a customer, or one to the four customers you have, and maintaining that culture throughout is what gets you to be successful and keep scaling that beyond.
Yeah.
Zappos has done what they've done because Tony has spread that culture from when they were, 8 guys to how big they are now, and they have distribution all across the country. Amazon. I just finished the book about Jeff Bezos and Amazon.
Hmm.
Same idea. He spread this culture of we have to meet our promises. We cannot fail at promises to the point where he'd be working in the warehouse till 3 in the morning to get
Yeah.
things done in the early stages. And that culture, it applies not just to sales, but to everything else, but especially in sales. That culture of building the relationship and doing the things to make your customers happy goes a long way.
Let me ask you one final question here before you go. Um, what do you think startups and overall companies are doing right now wrong, or what do you think that they're also doing that they're not doing, that they're not paying attention with to right now, that is potentially crucial?
So I think there's a lot of hidden data in the world, uh, in what people are doing as far as intent. I think there's a lot of stuff there to be tracked still in intent. Like I mentioned, why did you agree to take this call with me? Is a
Mhm.
powerful question that I think a lot of people don't ask. Um, I have the business I run right now. Whenever I have people that respond once and then never again, or they sign up once and never come back, I go, hey, why'd you sign up? What did you expect that we didn't provide? So there's a lot of hidden data in the intent because people are afraid to ask. People are afraid to ask questions that are potentially going to give them bad news. So I think that's something that a lot of people are missing, that there's a lot of power in. I think that's something that there's a lot of ability to do better on. The difficult parts are it's hard, it's a manual process, and it's scary because it's going to give you bad news. It's going to tell you where you suck. And I
I was
think
going to
those
tell
are
you how to
things a
get
lot of people
better.
can do. Which, if you're looking at it from the right side of things, absolutely, it's going to get better. But no one likes to hear that their baby's ugly.
Yeah.
No one, no one wants to ask those questions because it's hard.
Yeah.
To this day, I pause before I pick up the phone and go, "Where did we lose you?" But I know I need to find out because that's the only way I'm going to get better.
Yeah. That's very insightful, Chris. I want to thank you for your time. Um, if anybody wants to reach out to you, what is the best way to connect with you?
So I am incredibly visible on the internet. Obviously, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. It's just at Conrey. My postmodernsales.com, or you can check out my new startup Levers, which is leve.rs. And my email address is just Chris at any of those places.
All right, Chris, thanks again for Startup Jungle. I'm Los, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, Los.